Retreat Hell by W.E.B. Griffin. Prologue. Until August 1945, when General Order No. 1, the protocol for the surrender and occupation of Japan, was being somewhat hastily drafted in Washington, the 38th parallel, which runs across the Korean peninsula, had been just one line on a map of the globe. At the time, World War II was just about over. Nagasaki and Hiroshima had been obliterated by atomic bombs, and Japan was willing to surrender. The Soviet Union had just, somewhat belatedly, declared war on the Japanese Empire and had already started to move troops into the Japanese protectorates of Manchuria and Korea. President Truman, who had already learned not to trust the Soviet Union, realized that to keep the Red Army from occupying all of Korea, a border, a demarcation line between the northern part of the Korean peninsula and the southern, where the United States planned to station troops, was needed. If Korea was divided, about equally, at the 38th parallel, the United States would control Seoul, the capital, and the major ports of Inchon, near Seoul, and Busan at the southern tip of the peninsula. The division at the 38th parallel was proposed to the Soviets as the demarcation line, and they raised no objections. The seeds for what became the People's Democratic Republic of North Korea and the Republic of South Korea were sown. 4 years and 11 months later, the Inmun-gun, the Soviet-trained North Korean army, invaded South Korea across the 38th parallel with the announced intention of unifying Korea. The attack officially, and in fact, came as a complete surprise to the United States. United States intelligence agencies at all levels had failed to perform their basic duty to warn of an impending attack on the United States or its allies. It was hard then, and still is more than half a century later, to understand why we didn't see the attack coming. Immediately after World War II, Stalin had managed to establish surrogate governments in East Germany, Poland, Hungary, Czechoslovakia, and North Korea. On 5 March 1946, in a speech at Fulton, Missouri, British wartime Prime Minister Winston S. Churchill said, "From Stettin in the Baltic to Trieste in the Adriatic, an iron curtain has descended across the continent." President Harry S. Truman had become very suspicious of Soviet intentions even before he ordered the use of atomic weapons against Japan, and he had acted to foil them. For example, Truman had courageously dispatched American advisors, actually the first Special Forces operations soldiers, long before anyone even thought of wearing a green beret, to Greece, where they successfully thwarted Soviet intentions to take over the birthplace of democracy.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?